deň prajem, dámy a páni, takže som rád, že ste ma pozvali.
Good afternoon. I'm happy that you have invited me. And I'm going to speak about the safety of labor. That concerns everyone, and we have to cope with it. Perhaps it's worth asking whether it's a burden for entrepreneur or whether it's possible to have a good system of safety and security. I have 20 minutes, and within these 20 minutes in the EU, 6 people die, may it be occupational accident or occupational disease. Each 3.5 minutes, a man dies. So the question is whether to invest into safety or not. Those directives we have, which farmers have to be in line with, are 30 years old. 89391 about the safety of labor, and the second amended 2006 from 42. Originally it was 89391. It means 30 years we've been having these directives, and we have new ones, and these are implementing. These are implementing directives. So, on the top, 89391 concerns safety of work. It means it concerns each and every employer. Most of you are employers, if not you are managers. So all these directives gradually were ratified by the Czech Republic, or you should be in line with them. Perhaps you don't know that. This slide shows 2006-42. Perhaps this doesn't tell you anything, but each of you every day is looking at a tag on a appliance you buy or anything else, and it's a tag which tells you that the appliance you buy went through the inspection and it wouldn't hurt you. So you are meeting that even if you don't know. Of course, there is a mess because the new directives, they are amended, and just imagine that each employer, may he employ 1 or 100 people, would resolve production at 2 hectares or 5,000 hectares, and all these directives must be introduced. And you need to realize that agriculture as such, when the EC is assessing us based on statistics, we are ranking among 4 worst sectors. In terms of accidents, we are by 30% above the European average. There are lots of directives, you know, you have to get around in them, but agriculture, with specific feature it has a great problem to cut down the causes of incidents. This is the most obvious causes of death in agriculture. And if we speak about specifics or problematics area, there are machines and mechanical appliances which are moving in the field, and when the machine is moving outside, it influences their technical features, the safety of production. We are not always moving around solid, flat surface. There are sloping surfaces as well. And then working with animals, you never know what the animal will do. So it ranks among the most dangerous areas. And seasonality, if you look at this graph, in May, we are harvesting the fodder, then sugar beet. Its seasonality of field works from the viewpoint of accidents is very difficult. Of course, moving around the field made on slopy terrain and huge volumes which are being transported, that all influences the rate of accidents in agriculture. That's why we'll get very hardly at an average level. Within statistics, the accident rate is dropping, but number of employees is also dropping. And if you calculate 1,000 employees, you see that it's not dropping at all, because what's dropping is number of people, but the rate of accident is not. I said that the basic directive, the framework directive, which we all know, is reflected into our companies, and we can say that there is a process of risk management which gives us procedures how to do that. To identify the danger, assessment of risk, risk management, and that all supports other standards, from British standard and ISO 45001. The same way we resolve quality, also the security and safety has its own ISO standard. And if we want to be a quality manager, and if we want to manage accident rate, we need to be able to know all these directives. Those directives and standards speak about procedures which have to be taken into consideration, like criteria to identify danger, criteria to assess the processes. Not everyone can do that, and there is a certain frequency in which you need to do that. And what's also important, and majority of employers forget that, is to involve employees, because we want to have a management system, and we can't do that without employees. So we need to have trade unions or representative of employees who's in charge of safety and security. So identifying risks and dangers, this is quite a simple example.
Osobník, linka a nejaká čistička. Základná identifikácia je jednoduchá.
The basic identification, noise, vibrations, biological factors, physical load, heat and cold. This is what the employer should consider in operating this line. The process should analyze the dust content, and also we should use the content of the directive 98/24, and it identifies acceptable risks from the viewpoint of solid particles and aerosols. And noise, yet another directive speaking about acceptable risk. Is it in line or not? Should we introduce systems of measuring noise so that we would know whether we are in line or not? The red line, what's all above the line is unacceptable risk. It means the noise burden for the operator. The blue line speaks about burden on the environment, and this is still more complex than the line from the viewpoint of citizens who are in certain distance from the machine. Results. On the first slide there was corn, now there's wheat, and the noise is by 4 decibels lower. Cleaning machines, and the noise is above 80 decibels, which based on the directive lower threshold for noise. If you look at individual photographs, the very state of the machine, and of course that the directive stipulates that there should be a protective cover. And in the first place, you can see that there is no cover. The producer is introducing blocking system. If the cover is down, the machine automatically blocks, and the red arrow shows the blocking. Facility, and someone simply fixed it by a wire so that the cover couldn't be blocked off. If you have an inspection at your facility, you walk around and fix it, but if someone measures that, if there is unexpected inspection, then in many companies it looks like this. And then we wonder that the results of dust particles measurement are low. Instead of 3, it's 6.6. And the employee is exposed to occupational disease. Of course, the second part is risk assessment, either by measuring or by subjective measure. The easiest way is the method of points, just probability, giving points from 1 to 20. Minimum risk is 1, maximum risk 20. If you consider individual facilities, I look at the table, usually you get from here to here. But all directives speak about the fact that simply after we accept measures, we still have to improve. It's like a Deming cycle, constant improvement of working conditions. We have to go on. If we adopt one measure, we have to do inspection of another. So we need to manage the risk. Risk management is the very basis of directives, and the risk is manageable only below acceptable threshold. Here you can see acceptable risk, and what's above is unacceptable risk. So when we use the method, the red column is acceptable after risk management. Of course, principles of safe labor. Employees are entitled to have a safe working environment. On the other hand, the employee should work safely. The question is, how should he work safely if we are not capable of giving him instructions? If we do not create safe working environment, even the employee himself wouldn't know how to work safely. So each employer should think about instructing employee about safe working procedures. Of course, preventive measures are necessary, and inspections at the workplace are necessary as well. This is the task of the employer, and if he is doing it, the employee is working safely and there will be less accidents. There is a tangle of directives, and even if we have them for 30 years, even if they were improved, still we are not able to get at least the European average from the accident rate. They are pointing me that my time's out. So, what expects us in the future? International Organization of Labor. We have technological innovations 4.0. We'll be working on warmer planet. What does it mean? Either it will be too hot for our people to work, or they will work slowly. It depends on working environment. Next, prognosis of the International Labor Organization. Less of productivity due to heat stress. 3 times as much time. There are tables showing the temperature, 35, 40. These tables up to 30%. And the next problem, T index. Not only the heat, but humidity is affecting the body.
pracovníka samozrejme unavuje.
And then there are smart technologies, navigation, which reduces stress, reduces fatigue. Yes, that's all fine. But that brings about new risks, such as psychosocial stress and so forth. Or collision of a machine against a barrier and other factors. It's up to us how to solve these problems. Then if you take robots or self-driving machines, and the ultimate question is whether there are going to be any people left willing to work in agriculture. Workers in agriculture were not required to be educated at a higher level, while we cannot put up with this leniency now. Of course, we need financing, but we also need quality equipment. We need involvement of the workforce in tackling the problems of work safety. Without that, it will be very difficult to attract young people to farming. We've been tackling the problem at our college and contemplating how to raise awareness among the young people about the opportunities and the requirements. Coping with temperatures is certainly important, but
Pomáhajú s riešením oblasti bezpečnosti. A to veľa.
But we have to rely on people and perhaps trade unions. They need to understand. They need to, first of all, to want to understand. They can be helped, but quite often they resist help. So let us contemplate all these factors so that we can go back home and spend